Chapter 2, FLIME HIGH, Part 1. I slept lately. It was hard to sleep thinking about everything. Unfortunately, it was Monday, the end of Thanksgiving break, and I had to go to the closest place that was hell, FLIME High. FLIME High, pronounced FLIME High, was built in the 70s. It was called Lindbergh High School back then. In 2006, it was renamed to Leon Flimey Community High School, named after some guy named Leon Flimey, a philanthropist. He had donated money to the suburb and made it prosper. We were lucky to have the support. He donated to charity and cancer research. But a few years ago, he was found murdered in a back alley. No one knew the reason why or how. It was a private school as well. My mom was able to get me in because she was the head of the art program for this region, and my dad was great friends with them. My mom's car pulled up to the school. It was beige, bricks, large glass paneling framed the doorway with silver-colored beams in between the glass paneling. There was only one reason I came to school. I was forced, and I had some friends. I walked into the main lobby, and it was shaped like a trapezoid. 3 halls went out of each side except for the one with the entrance. Black carpets of Flimey's mascot, the Flyer, adorned the floor. The walls were tiled and beige. Some bulletin boards were on them. Glass cases with trophies were on the back wall next to the entrance. The floors were also tile. I saw my friends. Aaron was talking with Cruz and Peter. They were all over in a corner, doing nothing, just talking. They all turned around to see me. I simply jumped into the conversation. "Oh, JoJo's here," Peter said. Cruz turned his head and moved his hand. Which hand is your phone in?" he asked, holding out his hands. I rolled my eyes. "The right one," I said. "Which way is right?" I pointed to the right. "That way, you retard." Cruz opened his hand and gave me my phone back. I chuckled a little bit as he gave me my phone. The bell rang loudly, and we all went in different directions. Aaron and Peter going right, Cruz going straight ahead. I left for my first hour class. The first hour being English. I used to call it Ing or something. My seat is in the middle of the class, and my teacher there is okay. She's not terrible, not compared to my math teacher, Miss Gunts. Miss Gypsy was a heavier-set woman. She had blonde hair, tanned skin that's cracked in some parts, and she's older. She always acted like she hated her job and wanted to retire. I sat down and Miss Gypsy began talking. Just talking. Constant yapping about reading groups and reading in general. Reading is okay. It depends on what I'm reading though. But the book Crime and Punishment is incredibly boring. I just sat down, incredibly bored. Nothing to look at but the white brick walls. The floor with ugly striped carpeting. Some posters on the wall. And something to look at. But school feels more like a jail. After that class, I had algebra. Doing algebra with Miss Gunts was worst. She was loud for no reason. My ears constantly rang, and algebra itself was the worst subject that could have possibly been invented. Algebra was the one-earth version of hell, as always. Her room was the same as Miss Gypsy's, just algebra-themed. Her desk was incredibly messy, and her cabinets were barely closed. Miss Gunts was a slob. The rest of the day seemed to fly by me. At least, that's how it felt. I sat in my seat in the 6th hour. My next hour was gym, with computer skills before. But for now, I had to sit through biology, DNA helixes, RNA mutations. It felt like it was the same exact thing all the time. The biology room was different from their rooms. White bricks, huge windows, plants, black soapstone counters, but all the same anyway. Still felt like a jail cell. I sat down, almost diving headfirst into a long slumber of weird dreams. The alarm sounded. I assumed it was a fire, but no. People were running in the halls and to the closet doors of the building. Even the janitor, who wasn't even seen that much, was making a run for it. Me and the rest of that class followed what they were doing. We ran for our lives. Chapter 3, FLIME High, Part 2. A gas. It was red. It looked like some sort of mist or fog. I touched it only for a little bit. It felt wet. I ran out of the steel beam doors. Many students and staff lined along the wall, and the janitor panting. His long hair soaked in sweat, and his blue uniform wet as well. Miss Gunts seemed tired as well. She had some of her clothes ripped as if there was some sort of struggle. Peter was coughing so much a little bit of blood was being ejected from his throat. Cruz as well. In fact, there were a bunch of people that had this happening. Jojo, you okay? Aaron asked. I'm fine, just shaken up. Cruz and Peter are not okay, I say. Aaron looked over at them, their bodies desperately trying to dispel the gas. I reached for my phone in my pocket to call emergency services, but from the approaching sirens, it seemed somebody already had. 3 ambulances pulled up in front of the small parking lot of FLIME High. It gave a claustrophobic vibe. I heard people say, "It's a terrorist attack," or "Someone brought rat poisoning." I ran over to Peter, who began to convulse. "Help! Somebody help!" I yelled. I yelled so loud that my throat began to hurt. Cruz also started to convulse. A responder raced over to us, having only 1 stretcher, but the stretcher being big enough for 2 people. Cruz and Peter were loaded onto the stretcher and carried away. I looked over back at the doors, seeing 3 bodies being carried out, a blanket obscuring them. I went home that day. I was traumatized. Seeing the blood being forced from my best friends was heartbreaking. I read the news article about the incident. It said that 14 people were carried away from the scene and taken into hospice care. 2 died at the scene. 1 died from further complications at the hospital. I wanted nothing else than to just go home and rest before the accident. But now, I just wanted a normal day. I wanted to go home. Not like this, though. I got home again and went into the living room. My mom was sitting there. "An incident at FLIME High today. It was rumored to be some sort of gas," I heard from the TV. My mom looked at me. "Hey, Mom," I said. She ran over to me and hugged me. "I'm so glad you're okay," she said back. I hugged her back. "Reports call it a terrorist attack when it could just be a mustard gas experiment gone wrong. There's confusion over what exactly this was, but it seems that it emerged from a prank in the cafeteria restroom. The only affected the east wing of the building," the news broadcaster said. They showed a bird's eye view of the school. 3 deaths are confirmed. The school has been tested for poisonous gases, and the result has been negative. As such, classes will return as normal." "Well, damn," I said. My mom grumbled at me. I chose to call Peter, Aaron. Peter, Aaron, and I have all been friends since 2nd grade. Cruz joined our group in 7th grade. The rest of the group joined later. I called them on FaceTime, and I saw the faces of Cruz and Peter in the hospital. "Are you both doing okay?" I asked. Yeah, we're doing just fine," Peter replied. I stared at them. It was an awkward silence. "They found a bunch of stuff near the explosion," Cruz said. "What did they find?" I asked. "Oh, an arrow, an arrow? Like Native American style?" I asked. Yeah, Cruz replied. "It was broken, but they found one." I grabbed the arrow that I decided to keep on me. "Did it look like this?" I asked. Cruz's face lit up. Yeah, that's it," he said. I simply looked at the screen. I had the huge urge to sneak into my dad's office again. I had to read the journal. I walked into the office once again to grab the journal. I knew there was going to be something interesting to read. They found an arrow, so there had to be something in there. I picked up the journal, blowing away the dust on it, and I opened to the next entry. March 3rd, 2011. So I chose to go back to my dad's house one last time. He called me there and told me he would tell me everything. I drove there and walked on in. My dad was waiting with some tea that Mom made. He started to tell me about the arrow's properties. His father had created the arrows himself. His father worked in a forge, so my paternal grandpa had made these strange arrows. Dad began to cry. He said his sister was killed by these arrows. The virus inside was a terrible thing. I tried to comfort him. When he calmed down, he told me the arrows had a special power, and that they are full of special blood of a saint, Jesus Christ, and that they could give you a special power to you. The blood never dries, it's always wet, and once it makes contact with a person, the blood will go straight into the veins, and will give a special ability called a stand ability. He had gotten a stand ability. His sister wasn't so lucky. His father Jonah had created these arrows and forced his son, wife, and daughter to use them. He wanted a family of stand users, and now I may be one as well. I stood there in utter awe. My great-grandfather was a bad guy. He'd forced his family to use the very same arrow that had cut me. I chose to read more. March 4th, 2011. So I found out about stand abilities, and I figured out a lot more. Stands are a manifestation of your fighting spirit. My dead aunt had none. She was a kind person who was killed by the virus that saw her as unworthy. I suppose I had enough to survive, meaning I had a stand ability. I'll have to discover more. I also figured out the way stands work. 1. Only a stand can beat a stand unless the stand is bound to an object, such as a gun. 2. The best way to beat a stand is by beating the stand user, especially with long-range abilities. 3. Non-stand users cannot see stands unless they are bound to an object. So, was I worthy enough to survive? I put 2 and 2 together. The gas was released from the arrow. The gas released from the arrow had killed 3 people, the unworthy people who couldn't handle its power, and the 14 or more that did survive gained stands. That likely included my friends. I walked side to side in the office. I knew a school full of stands had to have sucked. I decided to quietly walk back and forth. I changed out of my blue and green jacket, my darker green tank top, both adorned with stars. I love stars. I love to wear stars. I laid down onto my bed. The only thought I had in my mind was, what was gonna go wrong?